Welcome back to the second part of a three-part series on the driver's right movement. I think by the I want to thank all you guys for being here again. And before I introduce you, I wanted to say that I had a couple people tell me that actually I know we were a little rushed that week, but they felt like that it was a good piece, like it was a whistle wetter. Like they were like, okay, I want to know more, and it ended. So I think it was like that perfect length piece because it really got them just wanting to go, okay, these guys are going to go on about all this, and then we cut it. So it was like almost like a Tarantino movie, if you can do that relationship or something. Yeah, but so I'm looking forward to this, to actually going through some of this tonight a little more, and not having anything after this, so that we can make sure we get through it properly. I want to welcome Nick Kassoff, tax practitioner and soon to be mayor of Ferguson, Missouri.
That's where we're working on.
That's right. Well, I mean, that's how we have to say it.
Yes,
If we
sir.
support you, we got to say it that way so that it happens.
Yes.
What is it? I actually disbelieve everything about this movie, but The Secret or whatever it was, just think it and it'll happen. I want a car. Okay. And then there will be a car in the driveway tomorrow. That kind of stuff.
That'd be a neat trick.
Yeah. I want to welcome Michelle Sleet. Michelle runs two of the Facebook groups and is a gig worker in the St. Louis market. And we've done a few projects now together, or round tables and stuff. So Michelle, how are you?
Yes, all is well. We're in the good time of the year. I love this time of year. People are feeling generous. Yeah, orders are up, and tips are good. And so I'm on Spark, and while I haven't done any yet, I saw the incentives, and I'm incentivized to get out there and do it because I'll make $265 after I complete 20 trips. And they're plentiful in my market, so I'm excited.
I was gonna say I see a lot. You probably know Brian Gigwise.
Yes.
I see him streaming almost as much as Mr. Flex. He streams all the time, and he only does Spark, I believe, now. He used to do DoorDash and stuff, but I feel like a lot of people do. I know people do Spark everywhere. People are all over Spark, but I feel like people in your market do a lot of Spark.
Well, the reason why I like it, and David will appreciate this, if David doesn't know, he probably does, that you get to see everything. You get to see the payout, the tip, and you know me, I like to know where I'm going. I get to see the address, the first and last name, and the items, everything that we're taking.
Yeah.
So I've been getting the $200 bonuses they've been sending for me for the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell you guys this. I think I said it before about loving Curry, but I got to mention it that Curry's been that way since I started working for him. They show you everything.
Do you need a truck to work for Curry?
You don't need a truck. A pickup, an SUV, or like a van helps because just because of looks. Like they don't want you arriving on site, or they'd rather arrive on site with those. But there's 80% of what I do is Sherman-Williams paint transportation, and most of it could fit into an average mid-sized car.
And he's making the big bucks, Nick.
And so yes, I do know many people that I've helped onboard too, and even skipping in front of the line a bit in their market because there is some waiting lists in some markets, but with just cars, and they're working. Because Curry, unlike Rhodey tries, and some others try, Freight tries, but Curry will not send orders to you that will not fit in your car. You won't get to locations and it doesn't fit. So like Rhodey,
Nick, Nick, you have a van, don't you?
I've got a van, and Rhodey. I mean, I've only done a handful of roadies,
but they don't pay that good, and they
don't pay that good.
Sloppy system.
And the thing about Rhodey is they're really picky. Like there's airport luggage was big with Rhodey for a while, but you had to have so many Rhodey gigs that you had completed on other things. So you had to take a certain number of, they were doing Home Depot and pet food from one of the farm supplies, and you had to have so many of those under your belt before they'd let you get luggage from the airport. So I don't know.
I want to tell you guys about something. So speaking of luggage, Hannibal is hungry. I'm going to give him a plug here because Hannibal is hungry and I do once a month. We do a show called Beyond the Algorithm. We look for a gig, something that people aren't doing. Curry, dumpling. We go to websites that don't have apps and we talk about how to work for medical couriers and things like this, just odd jobs. Dog walking like is a big part of his stuff. But we did one on luggage and holiday work. And I got to tell you that we made a video and we looked up some stuff about how you can do the luggage thing on your own, making about $80 an hour just by going up to the airport because they don't have enough people to do it. So your roadie subcontracting out to you, you can skip that step and just go do it yourself through a couple websites.
Well, that's
and make 3 times as much as you make doing it on roadie.
Well, the roadie pay stinks, and also I think our airport might have just dumped roadie because the last couple of times I loaded it up, there was nothing.
Yeah, I would Hannibal, if you've never checked out his channel, Hannibal is hungry. I won't plug it anymore, but and then find a show called Beyond the Algorithm. It's always him and I, and if you just look, one of them even might have said luggage, and if not, he's got a couple short videos on luggage that he pulled from that video. So he's talking about the exact same thing. And we always show people how to get to the websites. Like there was one that was for Airbnb owners who, if you don't want to use your house as the Airbnb anymore, and if you lived in the right market, they could help you as a rental dog park, so that people are using your property, but nobody's in the house. So now you can like either use it yourself, take it off Airbnb, leave it on Airbnb as long as you say that there's a dog park in the day behind it. But people with like an acre and a half in certain markets, and no, I'm not talking about like highest paid San Francisco or LA or New York or anything, but just even just property pretty much anywhere near a city was getting some people $200 to $2,500 a month. And that was it's just like it's a dog app, but again, it's not an app, so you won't find it. It's a website. So when we go digging for these websites and see what kind of weird work we can find. Because I mean, one day they'll all be on apps, but right now, even some of the stuff we find is even hard to find on TaskRabbit and those kind of things. They're just, you got to go find.
Sounds like I have to go listen to this and bring a bunch of it on Paraworks is what I'm writing down. So.
Hey, you know what? I forgot I didn't tell you, but I told Chan today. So we only do one a month. Yeah. Next Tuesday, and it's live. Next Tuesday, and in a lot of them, the CEO has joined us for the last 20 minutes. Joel from Dumpling. I got Matt from Curry joined us. And so we might be having you because next week is Paraworks.
Oh, cool. I'm one, I would love to plug it, but more importantly, I'm just like, hey, who's this luggage delivery that will pay 3 times cutting out the middleman, and how can I get that for the users, right? Like, that's
right. Yeah. Well, for that, David, just go look on Hannibal's channel.
Tell me what those websites are. I'll go.
Just go watch any of I'll send them to you.
Yeah.
Because we've done I think we've done 5. But I mean, it's interesting stuff. The medical career stuff pays amazing if you're willing to do it.
Yeah.
And obviously they're not entrusting, like, you got to be a good gig worker, but they're not entrusting in a good gig worker with like hearts or anything like real. You're just transporting like tissue and things like that, if you're comfortable with it, you can make a lot of money. A lot of money. But have we even talked about the drivers' rights movement yet? And welcome, David, CEO of Para, David Pickerel, who now I'm going to pick on a little bit. And we're going to, I know we talked about it last time, but we kind of just got through this a little bit. Can you give us just a quick crash course on the 4 basic principles?
Yeah. So basically, outside of Para is a part of what we're calling the drivers' rights movement, which exists beyond just Para, trying to basically give a platform for independent contract drivers to advocate for the privileges and rights of what it means to be an independent contractor. effectively saying, hey, if gig companies can't have it both ways, if they're going to categorize drivers as independent contractors, there are certain obligations that need to be fulfilled for that. And I think we believe in just 4 very basic principles for a more perfect gig system. I'm in charge of my work. I have a say in the system. My time is valuable. I own my data. And I think really our belief there is the idea that sort of like there was this initial promise of gig work, and that we basically it's time to bring us back to fulfill the promise of what that gig work means, right? So, access and sort of you should have the access to your information. You should have the control and flexibility to do what you want, and platforms should respect and respond to your needs and your preferences. And that's really what we're trying to push for.
So I think, and I know we covered that the last time too, but I wanted to talk about my time is valuable a little bit more. Are you referring to like dash time versus active time?
Somewhat, right? So
that's what I was going to say. That was my next thing. Or are you talking about like somewhat, like some of that time being covered or something?
So I know we're going to touch on this in a bit, but I think more it draws back to a couple different things of what it means to be an independent contractor. My time is valuable is this idea that you should have competition for your time, right? So if you look at sort of the Department of Labor and what they interpret, the sort of Fair Labor Standards Act, there's a whole bunch of things that they interpret in there, but there's a couple of these that I think we've sort of simplified to my time is valuable, right? So one of these is the worker should have an opportunity for profit and loss, right? So this means, can the worker earn a profit by performing the job more efficiently or exercising skill? I think there's another part here that basically says the amount of initiative or judgment in an open market competition that drives a worker's success, and whether the worker as an independent business can organize and operate themselves. But really what we mean by this is the idea that you shouldn't, through friction, only be able to work on one app. You should actually be multiple options in a seamless way for your time. And sort of beyond just the sort of Department of Labor interpretation, where I really want to go to sort of more on the being pro-driver and why this is good for drivers, is the only way in a sort of algorithm powered marketplace to push back and get better pricing and better sort of a better situation for drivers is essentially by drivers being able to say no. And I think a lot of the time what people have interpreted this as is, oh, there should be a strike, or, oh, people should reject trips under a certain dollar amount. I'm for those. I understand why people want to do those, but I also think that it's silly to assume, or hard to assume, that everyone will give up what's in their short-term interest. But let's be real, a lot of people just need to put food on the table and make a living, right? So if you think about it, the most realistic way to get people to say no to bad trips or trips that don't pay well is if there's other alternatives, that competition for time. So to me, I think why that's so important is not only is it that key part of what it means to be an independent contractor, I also think that that is what allows us to pressure the companies to get to a better gig economy.
Do either of you guys want to weigh in on any of this so far? Or?
I have one comment about on the subject of your time being valuable, and it's going in a different direction than David did. One of the things that has really frustrated me is that when things go wrong on a gig, you have to invest an enormous amount of time in getting compensation that you believe you're entitled to, or in setting the situation right. So you go to a restaurant, pick up some food, and you pull out of the restaurant and the person texts you a different address, and it's 12 miles further away. Well, so now you've got to pull over to, you can either drive the extra 12 miles and eat the loss, or you can cancel the order and jeopardize your future status on the app, or you can get on a support line and hope and pray that you get somebody competent and that it doesn't take 40 minutes to get through, and that they actually authorize you some extra pay, which they may or may not. Meanwhile, you've taken 45 minutes of your time away from paying work. And when you're in the world of W-2 work, uncompensated labor is illegal. A company that tells you to work off the clock will have huge legal problems. But in the gig world, they essentially force you to work off the clock, and they do it with impunity. So that's when you say my time has value, that's the thing that's popping into my head. And that's a policy issue and something that needs to be improved. I think if a gig company had excellent customer service excellent contractor service, the people that we're contacting, that company would be flooded with good workers, because we all have the experience of contacting somebody who doesn't understand the question, doesn't have the solution, really doesn't care, and it costs us money. Well, I can tell you, and you know as well, that there's a wide difference in quality between, say, DoorDash versus Amazon Flex, for example. My experience with Amazon Flex support is that it's very good, it's very responsive, and you get through almost instantly, and they take care of you. My experience with DoorDash is it can be a half hour waiting in the queue, and then it's a crapshoot whether you get anything helpful out of them. So,
I'm only laughing because we have a David knows him too. We have a friend, and both you guys, all of us, you guys might know him as well. Zach drives fast. Zach has a rule about when he calls on DoorDash. If he hears a goat, he just hangs up.
Now, see, if I don't hear a goat, I assume I dialed the wrong number.
Right, or you're actually going to get some help that's helpful.
Usually, I hear the rooster. And
or the rooster. Yeah, he's had a bunch of them. He's like, I have a lot of triggers that I'm like, nope.
There's some really cute memes out there too, with a console with a guy with a rooster on his head, and there's this.
I mean, it is horrible. I got to tell you guys, I had a horrible experience with one of these, and I'm not going to say even what app. I'm just going to be very nice. Instacart. Where when I was talking to the person, and I don't know where they were from. I have no idea. I mean, I could probably make some guesses, but when we were verifying myself before talking, and I said I was from Colorado, she said that they didn't have the country of Colorado.
Oh.
And I knew we had bigger problems than my issue.
Yes, that's when you hang up and hit redial.
I know, but if, like you said, if you've been in the queue, now what? Because even that person usually is they're not going to get you to somebody higher. Even if they put you on hold, it's just going to leave you on hold. I mean, if you do get somebody, you're just getting lucky because.
Right. And so and getting back to the original point of your time having value as a contractor, when I work in contract arrangements where I'm fully in charge, freelancing in IT or tax work, people don't get to waste my time for free. I had a client who is out of business now, but he used to drag me into all sorts of things that weren't particularly germane to the sort of work I was doing for him, but I was just the best person for the job. And I think at first he thought if it wasn't IT work, he was getting a freebie. And I said, look, I'll empty your waste baskets if you want to, but the hourly rate's the same. And with DoorDash or any of these gig apps, really, once you get outside the ordinary workflow, the hourly rate is zero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it really goes back to like you can't have it both ways, right? It's basically like we won't tell you what exactly the full terms of the trip are, but if the terms of the trip are changed, you're obligated to fulfill it. And in order to fulfill it, we're going to make you wait without paying you by going through customer support, which we don't really invest in and provide a bad experience for.
And we're not going to show you the information you need to make a informed decision on taking this order to begin with,
right? Exactly.
in the very first step.
Well, that's why you also have to make your own rules. I let so many offers go past me because I don't like the restaurants. They don't acknowledge me. They don't prepare the food. I have my merchants, and rarely have I ever had a problem because the food is ready. If something happens, they remake, they know me. They know I'm doing business with them. And it's a real education. I also, we had a big thing today. It was number one in our door, I kind of go through the queue and I like, what's going to be the post today? I wish I could show it to you. Maybe Steve could even post. I could send the picture. It looked like the walk up steps to a trailer park, and there was a huge step missing. You could die, you could fall through the steps. And so it was real rundown. So let's just say it's some rundown, sketchy trailer park. And the driver said, "This is what I had to do," and there wasn't even a tip. I think you posted on that post, Nick, I believe.
Yeah.
And
Michelle, you can share if you do share screen, you can pick an open window. Like, so if you open up the image, you'll see your image window.
Yeah, but you'd have to find it though.
Okay, don't even look.
Yeah, but
and that person was a dummy because they took a no tip order. But
exactly.
But what you can't blame the merchant, and you really can't even blame DoorDash when you have a customer who knows they're outside the delivery area, so they put in their old address and then message you after you've accepted the order. That's really not. It's not the merchant's fault. It's kind of not DoorDash's fault either, or whoever.
Well,
but the problem is that we don't have a reasonably efficient way of dealing with those situations.
I would like to propose something that I think is very easy. It's the same kind of thing we've talked about with driver tips, which obviously they just don't want to do. Like, how hard would it be to just show it? Okay, well, so how hard would it be for them to have a flow screen for when you're going, just at that last screen, just say, hey, it's kind of the same thing as when you click that box for same as billing address. So yeah, you have your default home address in, but why can't the last screen be, this is where it's going, correct?
You're assuming that people are doing this by accident, and I don't think that's necessarily true.
Well, this is my point though. This makes it more efficient to get hot food, everything. I mean, if the goal is for the analytics to not only abuse workers, but also to get food as quickly as possible to the locations, the last thing they need is people changing addresses and sending food to somewhere that's going to be cold by the time it gets there, and the restaurant doesn't want itself represented that way. I don't know. How hard is it to just say, and why? I guess my question is, why would, even as a user, why would I care? Because if I care, it just means I am truly scamming the system on purpose, and I'm now mad that I can't scam.
But I think sort of beyond that, it's the fact that the platforms would be able to solve situations like that if they wanted to, right? There's a system that shows, hey, how's the driver doing on the trips that they're doing? There's sort of a 1-2x strike policy, etc. You started to see Airbnb do this, right? Airbnb said it will look and do some checks on some users, but to be honest, it wouldn't be hard for DoorDash to roll something out that says, okay, now that Nick's flagged that you're going to fall through, that you're going to fall through the stair when you're delivering.
I sent you the picture, by the way.
Yeah, like you shouldn't be able to do that, or you shouldn't be able to order from there again, etc. Right? Obviously, it's not quite that simple of a system, but I've seen that here, right? I know I've brought this up on a couple different podcasts, but there's sort of like 4 seasons that's undeliverable in San Francisco that nobody can deliver to, that never lets you up. They see that in the data. They know that that's in the data. It's just the companies are optimizing for, we want as many orders as possible. And it's that trade-off, right? Do I want to potentially turn off order, which is money, or what is the trade-off to that versus which would some drivers do it anyways? right? And I think that's really how I view a lot of the problems is the focus of the companies, right? It's sort of the grow the top line from the user at all costs above any investment into sort of sort of the driver experience, right? Or sort of being able to solve some of these problems. Because let's be real, like if they wanted to, they could solve that problem very quickly.
Very quickly. That's my point. And again, it's usually that it's not very quickly because it's, and I'm not saying they're doing it to be mean. They're doing it for their own economic reasons, but the reason with drivers is very obvious. It's pay related. But with this, I don't even think you'd be hurting your customer base because you would only be eliminating scammers.
Oh, well, they have implemented something, and our folks have gone. They don't like it. Actually, after you tell DoorDash maybe twice, you do something like that. You change addresses, or you say you didn't get your food, but you probably really did, and they identify you as a trickster. They're now having drivers sign. You have to sign their phones, and the drivers despise this practice.
Of
First off,
course.
the drivers don't want to have an interaction, and they don't want people touching their phones.
I was just going to say that. I mean, like, how many times and I don't even do as much delivery probably as any of you, except for maybe David, and that's because both he and I barely do any. You know, like I do work all the other apps, my other apps a lot, but even at the restaurants showing them. How many times have you had somebody at the restaurant just, and I've worked restaurants, so I get this. I didn't work during these kind of times, but they'll just grab your phone. Let me look at it. They don't really ask permission, and they're not being aggressive and like throwing you to the floor. They're just kind of like, I can't see it, and they grab it and they're like, and you're like, dude, you know, like, don't just grab my stuff, man. You know, but at the same time, it's like if you start showing somebody something that's kind of like it's kind of a reaction. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, people don't want to see that. People don't want to have. I mean, I question not just because of its safety, but I question why people do the liquor delivery things. It's the same thing. You got to go in and see an ID. You've got to have them touch, I think, sign on your phone.
Yes. Well, they're not doing that. The last 4 or 5 that I did, I just did one the other night, fine wine from a restaurant. And I request that the customer hold their address out. And, you know, DoorDash is asking me some questions. Do they look like they're intoxicated and things of that nature? I'm making my best guess. They're at their own home. I don't think they're going out driving, but they're putting me in that position. And then just scan the front of their license. And then they come back, check verified, no signature required.
Yeah, Instacart also, you scan the barcode on the back of the license, it auto populates a form, and they never touch your phone.
Oh, okay. I thought that I saw something that I know Drizzly was bought out by Uber, but they're going to start franchising that out a bit. And I thought any platforms using Drizzly were moving to you had to check their ID and then you had to have them sign a phone.
Well, that was a big post I had today, because somebody said they felt like they got a contact high when they touched someone's license plate. It was my #1 post. She said she got back in the car a half an hour later. Everything started kind of going wiggly on her and all that. And she thought that they maybe cut some drug with the driver's license. And she just said, I want you to be aware it could happen. And, you know, about 100 people weighed in on that comment. But Drizzly, you're right. I do Uber, and people agree with me. I'm not going to say I've done this, but a lot of people said they go ahead and do the signing themselves. It's just a scribble, and because they don't want anybody touching their phone.
And I agree, but I wouldn't say that in a Facebook group.
No, right?
Save that for Reddit.
I mean, unless you got a fake name on your Facebook profile, but you know, with the way they do it with Instacart, you can have the customer hold their license, and you can just kind of, you know, they're holding the license, and you just move the phone up to the appropriate distance, and it goes bleep, and it's.
I think the reason why I've seen some of the articles that I have is because they're having a big problem because every state, like, okay, let's talk about our states. David's in California, Michelle's in Missouri, you're in Missouri, I'm in Colorado. We all have different liquor laws.
Mhm.
We all have different classes that you need to take to be able to handle liquor, including packaged liquor. So even at a liquor store where you're not making drinks, whatever, you're just ringing it up, you still have to take, like here it's called tips. It's called a tips class, and it doesn't mean how to handle tips. It means how to watch. In like for the bar, you have to take more classes because you have to take how to watch for people getting drunk and what are the signs and how to, and then there's like strategies on how to get them out of the location safely. Try and
When I
get
was
them.
delivering in Seattle, right, I had to deliver alcohol. I had to take a tips class there, and it took like
Yes.
3 hours or something like that. I remember.
Yeah, because they want to talk to you about understanding. I mean, I know some people, like when I was working in the bar, the younger people come in and they're just like, I don't care. And you can see them. They have to show up on a Saturday to do this thing. They come in hungover. They just don't care. But nonetheless, you have to listen to this person for 6 hours, and it does weigh in. They make it fun, but you do learn something. I mean, we don't learn anything from the non-videos, and I have heard of a few videos being out there, though. I can't remember. I think it was Dash Theory was telling me this, that there are some videos, and it was one of the platforms, and that would go to the same thing about like there being rain videos. Why can there be rain videos but not training tutorial, like not even hard ones, but just super short training tutorials where until you watched 3 videos, for 2 minutes each, you couldn't work on the app? Because if you can't spend 6 minutes watching those videos, you shouldn't be able to work on the app. You don't nearly have enough of a commitment to this if you don't have 6 minutes first. But I don't know, I mean, I know back in the day, and we've talked about this before, is that, they just didn't want to be any part of training. But I think that now, if you're going to deal with liquor, if you're going to deal with underage minors, and if you're going to deal with people being raped, those are 3 things at least that need to be covered.
I
Because
guess where I go with a lot of this is sort of you can say, hey, the platform should flag some of this. The platform should be better. But the simplest solution is for me to be able to say, I don't ever want to go back to that person with the weird stuff on their ID. I don't want to go back to that place where I'll fall through the stair, right? That's sort of the simplest solution. And I think sort of bringing that back to sort of that IC law stuff, right? This idea of sort of like the right to control your work, right? And the fact that the platforms shouldn't be able to exert that right to control the work that you do. And to me, that's just the simplest way, is like, just give the power to the individual and say, I ain't ever going back there, right? That's the easiest way.
Well, and the funny thing is, they already give that power to the restaurants. If you go in and mouth off to the hostess and they don't want to ever see you again, they click on your name and you'll never get an offer from them again.
Yeah, and it's sort of crazy. Why can't you do that to the restaurant, right? If you show up and if they mouth off to you, I don't want to go back to that Taco Bell.
To the restaurant, you're right, to the restaurant and also to the customer.
Yeah.
You get a customer who tip baits. Okay, that's the last time you'll see me, brother.
Because they don't trust the drivers to do that properly.
But if it's only affecting my workflow, it doesn't matter, right?
Right, but then they don't know how much the workflow is that can go to that Taco Bell. Because what if nobody wants to go to the Taco Bell?
Well,
and
then
they all say, no, I hate it.
Better. Pay more at a price people will do something.
But if it's for reasons of being, if the reasons, like what if it's a really clean one, it services fairly promptly, it's just super busy, people don't want to go, you would start getting people like that going, I had a problem here.
But if clicking on that button does nothing other than cut off future offers from that restaurant to me, then then that's my right.
I agree. I also agree that why, when you know the full pay, are you saying, we'll only show them this, and then on the tips, only show them this, and then whatever's left, we'll give them at the end after they do the job.
Well, DoorDash has changed their order offers now. They're not even showing us items anymore.
Yeah.
They're giving us less and less information to try to deduce what might be at the end.
I was wondering if did any of you guys see this article about, I think it's been out for a couple days now, about the city of Chicago?
No.
So Uber Eats, the settlement finally went through for a lawsuit that's been going on for a while. Uber has agreed to a $10 million settlement with the city of Chicago for listing local restaurants in the Uber Eats and Postmates app without restaurants' consent, as well as charging excessive commission fees. So we've heard about this, and like I've heard about Washington, D.C., somebody having like a kitchen in their house and serving like Tortina's pizzas after midnight to drunks.
Like Totino's, like frozen.
Yeah, they go buy them at the store for $1, and then they sell them for $5.
The guy went super viral. I saw this.
Yeah, and then they sell them for $5 out of their apartment.
Unbelievable.
I mean, Dash Theory, we were doing a roundtable a couple weeks back, and he said he had his first, God, what platform was it? It was a food delivery, and it wasn't Grubhub. It was Uber Eats or it was DoorDash, but he's in Phoenix, Arizona, and he had his first where he picked up was an apartment building. Like he had to go up to an apartment, and they're like, yeah, here's the food.
We get some people that find that to be very strange, and then others come on and they ream them. Why they should have the ability to earn money if they want to. They support it.
Oh my God, being in that industry forever, that is the most hideous thing I've ever heard. As much as I hate regulations and things like that, there's a whole cleanliness, sanitary, all kinds of things that restaurants have to go through. So, I mean, should people be able to make PB&Js while they're smoking weed? No.
Or have their cat walk around the sink, and I know.
Yeah, or they have turtles and snakes, and they have them out. They're into reptiles, and so they've got salmonella all over the counters.
Okay.
I mean, you could probably charge extra for those PB&J weed sandwiches. That could be a whole new.
I think I'd target more addictive, like get you hooked.
Bad example there, but I mean, I honestly, from after working gigs for a while, it makes me really hesitant to order delivery anyway, just because of what you see when you're out and about. But
right, but I mean, like, this settlement makes sense to me, but it's like, gosh, they went after that many. I mean, this isn't one business. This is so many this is all the restaurants in Chicago that told Uber Eats no. They put them on anyway. They said, "Well, forget it, and we're gonna charge."
Right, as we've seen quite a lot of this, is the restaurants being upcharged, the end consumer being mispriced because the restaurant prices are higher on the platforms. I think to some extent it's good when I see that. I think Pennsylvania did something else too. But what's been missing from a lot of this, the last sort of the state investigated somebody, there's a settlement, was DC for when DoorDash was actually skimming the tips, not just hiding the tips, right? So it's been a while since we've seen a state go on the driver's side of things. So while it makes me happy to see that some of this is going with market fairness, I think that's part of the reason we're trying to push with the drivers' right, is the restaurant lobby is powerful. They have political power. They can push for these sort of investigations and put things in front of attorneys general, etc. And I think that's, to some extent, is attorneys general should, when they talk about consumer protection, the driver is technically also supposedly the consumer of these apps per their stance there. So I think really hope to see the states do more from that perspective.
Yeah, see, I don't know about Uber Eats, but a few years back before they got bought out, I was doing Postmates for a little while. And that happened to me. I took an order from Postmates and it was one of the ones where, you had to use the red card, except I think it was a black card for Postmates. And I went in there and started to put in the order. And when she saw that I was using the Postmates debit card, she said, "Nope, get on out of here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sure did do that.
It was Obie Clark's down on Brentwood Boulevard.
I remember you telling me that. That's yes, and thank you, because I never went in there and embarrassed myself.
Yeah. So that's what they were doing. They were they go into a restaurant, snap a picture of a menu and put it online with a 30% markup or whatever. And from Postmates' view, I think they were like, well, we're the customer of the restaurant, and we're reselling the product.
Yep. But then I remember seeing then the same platforms complaining about apps that would scrape prices from DoorDash, right? So there's a couple of these apps for consumers that would scrape the prices from DoorDash and compare. I remember sort of the platforms made a huge outcry, being like, how dare you scrape our menus and our prices? That was just the biggest irony of all time, is like, y'all did that to the restaurant whose menu it actually is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but at the same time, I don't know if you know, David, you must know this, that I don't know if you know, but forget this bootlegging real restaurants in Chicago, but when you make an agreement and say, yes, DoorDash, I will work with you, and you're a restaurant, they actually, so we know they charge the consumer. They charge the consumer a lot of fees, everything to get the food delivered. But do you know that they give the restaurants the option to pay? Or they suggest that they use a price increment on their menu items. I found that out just recently, and I was blown away, because I was like, I hear a lot of restaurants complain that, hey, why is this more when they order it through the app? But I've now found out that the legit restaurants who really, the good managers who work with DoorDash and stuff, realize they're a big portion of their business. They are making a decision of, do I want to just pay some fees and whatever this looks like, or do I want to, like, they have a strategy worked out for you, increase all your items by 2%, and that will cover all the transactions.
Interesting.
And to me, I'm like, that's, it's just so horrible, because that should not be happening. It should all be going to the consumer. The restaurants, I mean, I've ran a bar and restaurant. It's hard to keep food cost where it needs to be. It's hard to make money on food. It is. I mean, maybe not a food truck these days, a little more luck there, but it's tough to run a restaurant. And if you're having to up your prices because it's being delivered, I mean, if there's already a delivery fee being charged to you.
Well, yeah, but that delivery fee's not enough to cover the costs.
Well, we know what to do then. Raise it. And I know nobody wants to. I mean, I know we all are just going to say, well, they're not going to do that. But that's
you know what it's like, though. Are you familiar with when they do a TIF or a TDD when they build a shopping center? So what they do, if they're building a new shopping center somewhere, they'll do something that's called a TDD, a Transportation Development District. And what it does is it allows them to borrow money to build the roads and the parking lots and the infrastructure, and then pay those bonds back using what looks like a sales tax. It goes on your receipt as part of the sales tax.
From the shops in the mall.
So if you go into a Target store in a TDD versus a Target store that's old and not in a TDD, the price sticker on the shelf is going to be the same. But when you go in the register, through the register, the sales tax will have an extra 0.5% tagged on there. And that sales tax goes to the TDD to pay off the bonds that the developer used to build the infrastructure for the shopping center. And so you don't think about the fact that it's more expensive to shop at this Target than that Target because they've hidden it. And they're doing the same thing with this. If they say $10 delivery fee, people will be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's outrageous. But if you add 30 cents onto this item and, and with Instacart, somebody's buying 40 or 50 items from the grocery store, they add 10 or 15 cents onto each item. People don't think about it. Well, the bag of carrots is $1.50 in the store, and it's $1.65 when I ordered it through Instacart. I don't know if it might have been more expensive this week anyway, whatever. People don't realize that they're paying that money, and so they'll go ahead and pay it. That's why they can't put it all in one big fixed fee like that people can see.
But I feel like it's okay to mark it up to me as long as it's transparent before you buy it.
Yeah, but that's what I was just thinking, David. How do you make that happen? Like a sign? I mean, I mean, we all know it. Come on, let's be honest. Like signs aren't really legit. That's not legit. Don't just have a sign up that says, "Hey, there's a," is it? I am curious. Like in the same zip code, is it a line item on the receipt? So if I go to 2 Targets in the same zip code and one is on a TDD, will it have a line item for that?
No, probably not. You'll just have a different sales tax rate. Because
that just seems illegal to me. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even a tax
in
practitioner.
metropolitan St. Louis, we have hundreds of these.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a whole zip code. It's one shopping center that has
I no, right. I get it.
I mean, it can be a zip code.
I'm just wondering because it just seems like you're not charging the tax. You're charging the tax and a little more that people don't know about.
Well, the state law allows them to levy that as a tax.
Weird. I mean, I'm glad you told me that. I had never heard that in my life.
I don't know if they have it in Colorado, but I'll bet they do.
Oh, it's a state by state. Okay.
And yeah, it's a state law. But, if you want to talk about lack of transparency, look, my biggest gripe with the gig apps and DoorDash in particular, when the tip hiding is bad for the driver, but the tip hiding is really bad for the customer. And there's where the real lack of transparency is. Because the customer is putting a larger tip with the hopes of getting better service. And when DoorDash hides the tip and doesn't tell the customer that they're doing it, they're depriving the customer of a service that they're paying for, and they're doing so in a way that's non-transparent. That irks me even more than the fact that I look at an offer in DoorDash and I don't really know how much it's going to pay. They're flat out stealing from the customer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Although on this, there's something quite interesting. I just pulled this up on the other side of my screen here, but basically, the DC Attorney General and the Pennsylvania Attorney General last year came to an agreement with Uber Eats, basically saying that they had to add disclosures to its app if there are price differences between what you would order in the restaurant and what was being charged in the app.
So a checkbox that we already check anyway. Even
I think I'd actually gotten this. I think it's like a pop-up that says, "Hey, the price difference is there." Okay. But they actually just also had a settlement 2 weeks ago with Grubhub, also saying if the price is different than what's in the restaurant versus what's in the app, you have to call it out. Now, the settlement was Grubhub was a slap on the wrist. Grubhub had to donate $125,000 or $150,000 to Pennsylvania food banks.
Yeah, but Grubhub also got it handed to them in New York City, and they're being sued huge for that. I don't know if you saw that this summer when they did everybody gets free food for the one afternoon. They didn't. Yeah. They forgot to tell the restaurants. So you guys can now imagine what happened. Yeah, restaurants were closing, people were quitting. They're like, forget this. I mean, the orders were coming in at 100 times the rate of normal, and it's New York City, and restaurants were shutting down that they hadn't shut down, let's say, even through the pandemic, haven't locked their doors 24 hours a day in 10 years. And they were, because they're like, we can't do these orders.
Yeah.
And so there's a big lawsuit coming there too. It's like, how is that oversight? How are you Grubhub, who's being repped somewhat by Amazon right now, and you didn't catch that you're doing this huge promo for everybody that orders over $9 gets a free delivery today? And this is before they were on Amazon. It was just before it. It was kind of like, I think, a plug for going to Amazon. And so now it's like, oh, we forgot to tell the restaurants. Really? Because I would think that would be a restaurant participation thing, and that you'd be limited in the restaurants you could use. Like, hey, do you guys want to participate in this? We'll still pay you all the fees. Because some restaurants, their quality of their food is what matters the most. So they'd be like, no, I don't want 100 extra orders tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think it really goes back to, right, you have to remember that the marketplace is optimizing for what is the best outcome for them. at the expense of both the restaurant and the driver most of the time, right? That is what they're optimizing for. And I really think that's when we sort of bring it back to some of the earlier part of this conversation of why you need full transparency, and also why you need people to be able to input their preferences, right? So really what I boiled down to what needs to be better, it's not just transparency, but it's transparency plus the preference of each party to be able to be taken into account. In this scenario, the restaurant should be able to say, hey, I don't want to be part of this. Hey, I don't want to give away free food, et cetera, et cetera. And I think to get a little wonky here, I think quickly is just like, if you just look at it from sort of like a marketplace efficiency, essentially what's happening is the platforms are not taking into account the preferences of the other parties on purpose, and basically using that to generate that sort of arbitrage. And I think in a more perfect system, right, you would want the inputs of everybody, because once you have the inputs and the preferences of everybody, that's how you price this stuff efficiently. And that's what I found really interesting, right? Stephen, you and I have had this conversation, right, where, this actually it's sort of Sergio from Show Me the Money Club yesterday, right, where he essentially said, hey, the CEO of Uber and the chairman of Lyft said, hey, it's up to us. Our job as the marketplace is to price these things efficiently and price these things correctly. But you can't price things correctly if you're missing inputs from both the sides, right? That just doesn't work, right? What you're then pricing effectively is for the outcome that you are looking for, not what the others want. And I think that's sort of the core of the ecosystem problem here.
If you noticed, Sergio jumped right on that with almost like his disbelief in it. Like, we'll see. Like, you guys aren't going to be able to do this. So if people are wondering how this is relating to the drivers' rights movement, every piece of what we've talked about, I think, has so far. The overall picture of this portion, I think, would be, look at how these companies operate, not just with us drivers, but listen to what we're saying about how they even talk to businesses, the B2B part. I mean, that's pretty sad. I mean, what we're saying about this would have never flown in any other time in history. To just go, listen, you own that restaurant, you worked your everything off for it. Okay, well, we're going to do this to it. No, I don't want to have that. Okay, well, we're just going to do it anyway. We'll just deliver your food. We'll charge the fees. Forget it. I mean, and then you have to go to court over it. I mean, this is ridiculous. So for all the drivers out there hearing this, realize that the customers get played with how much they pay. They're probably the best out of all of them. And then the drivers just get worked. But these restaurants are not crushing it. It helps them to have these apps. But some restaurants don't like these apps coming in because they know how much they serve, how many plates they put out in a night. And they don't want to put out any more. They've got this system down. And most restaurants like to carry the food on hand they need, no more. They'll order 2 to 3 times a week to only carry what they need. So they don't want to be slammed, and they've got the Philadelphia's best Philly cheesesteak. They don't, and they're known for it. They don't want to get slammed by a bunch of Uber orders the first hour they're open that takes away their whole day's ingredients.